In a world with dragons, White Walkers, giants, and children of the forest, did you know that there are also unicorns? According to the Woldbook, unicorns have been around since the Dawn Age and were originally ridden by a massively built extinct race called the Hairy Men, who populated much of western and central Essos, and it's rumored that some unicorns might still be found high in the mountains on the Isle of Ib that is populated by another race of hairy people called the Ibbenese. But aside from those unicorns mentioned in far-off Essos, these mythical creatures have also been mentioned several times in Westeros in relation to the island of Skagos in the north. Skagos is a place with a foul reputation that Davos Seaworth calls the Isle of Unicorns and Cannibals. And according to Samwell Tarly, the large hairy people who inhabit the island of Skagos are said to live in mountains and caves and ride great shaggy unicorns to war. And it's also possible they eat people, but we aren't focusing on the negative today. According to the Woldbook, the Skagosi call themselves the Stoneborn, referring to the fact that Skagos means stone in the old tongue, a huge, hairy, foul-smelling folk. Some maesters believe the Skagosi to have a strong admixture of Ibbenese blood. Others suggest they may be descended from giants, clad in skins and furs and untanned hides, and said to ride on unicorns. Unfortunately, the unicorns in this series are mysterious and seldom seen, so much so that some maesters even question their existence. A living example of such a creature, or even a skeleton, has never been brought to Old Town for study. Often the unicorn horns being offered by merchants are actually the horns of narwhals, hunted by the whalers of Ib, which might suggest these tales of unicorns are just that, tales. But the further north in Westeros we travel, the more we find echoes of truth to these claims. The Woldbook describes seafarers' accounts of stoneborn lords riding great shaggy horned beasts, monstrous mounts so sure-footed they have been known to climb the sides of mountains. And the Woldbook goes on to mention that unicorn horns of a quite different kind have been confirmed by the maesters stationed on the wall at Eastwatch, near Skagos. And when Jon Snow allows the wildlings south of the wall, one of the offerings given by the free folk is a helm made from a unicorn's head, complete with horn. And one of the children of the forest living in Bloodraven's cave has also mentioned that unicorns do exist. However, definitive proof came straight from the horse's mouth in a 2019 Not-a-Blog post when GRRM was discussing the differences the upcoming books will have from the show. And in doing so, he confirmed that we will be seeing unicorns on page in The Winds of Winter, stating that yes, there will be unicorns of a sort. And there you have it. Unicorns do exist, but they may not be what we were expecting. Martin describes them as unicorns of a sort, which is an idiom meaning atypical to some extent or in some other way. So these may not be the types of unicorns we are used to seeing in fantasy literature. And that same year, Martin went on record in an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, mentioning the same thing.
How the weapons work, etc.
You didn't give the horses wings on their backs, like Pegasus.
I didn't, no.
Good. All right.
I have an interesting take on unicorns coming up, but in the new book. Oops.
So, what is this interesting take on unicorns? What makes them unicorns of a sort? Well, we may have already gotten a peek. While the unicorns haven't been fully revealed, in A Dance with Dragons, Davos Seaworth had discovered that Osha, Rickon, and his direwolf Shaggy Dog are in hiding on the islands of Skagos. And in the first Jon chapter of the same book, Jon had warged inside Ghost, who calls out to his packmates and sees a vision of his black brother Shaggy Dog fighting something with a long horn. Far off, he could hear his packmates calling to him, like to like. They were hunting too. A wild rain lashed down upon his black brother as he tore at the flesh of an enormous goat, washing the blood from his side where the goat's long horn had raked him. Given what we know about Shaggy Dog's location, this passage has caused many to conclude that Shaggy Dog had likely fought Martin's version of a unicorn. as this goat was described as enormous with a long horn, which is singular, whereas a regular goat would have 2 horns. This goat-like description is also reminiscent of the seafarers' accounts mentioned in the Woldbook of the Skagosi riding great, shaggy horned beasts, sure-footed enough to climb the sides of mountains. And shaggy and sure-footed enough to climb the sides of mountains sounds a lot like a goat. So could this be it? Is George R. R. Martin giving us huge, shaggy battle goats in the Winds of Winter? Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes. We are getting battle goats. As it happens, I was doing an episode on the giants with the history of Westeros, which is linked below, where we did a lot of research into possible genetic relatives of the giants, specifically the Ibbenese and the fabled hairy men of Essos, but also the Skagosi, since the Woldbook mentions the Skagosi to be related to either the Ibbenese or the giants. The maesters can't decide. However, there is evidence to suggest they may all be related in some sort of larger diaspora of hirsuit peoples who evolved into varying sizes, with the fabled and extinct race of hairy men being something of an evolutionary intermediary between the giants and the Ibbenese, a missing link, if you will. The Skagosi, who are massively built and believed to be related to either the Ibbenese or the giants, is just another hint. But one thing I did in my research was take a closer look at unicorns in the series, because both the Skagosi and the hairy men of Essos were said to ride on unicorns. Additionally, unicorns are also rumored to be found high in the mountains on the Isle of Ib, so it's a commonality tying all 3 races. And because Martin's unicorns are described like shaggy goats, all you have to do is enter the words unicorn and goat into a search engine, and you will find that it's actually a thing. It's possible to modify a goat to have 1 horn in the middle of its head. The technique was developed in the early 1900s, and they became a pretty popular attraction around the 1980s at certain circuses and Renaissance fairs. It's basically a modification done to a goat when its horns are still forming, resulting in 1 horn instead of 2. And one of the things I also discovered is that when you have 1 goat with a single horn in the herd, they become the alpha because they're more dangerous, with a long impaling weapon in the center of their head, which they use like a forward-thrusting bayonet in their attacks. This sort of modification would also be advantageous for a mount if you're going to ride something into war or battle. So, while it's possible the Skagosi have these naturally occurring goat-like creatures with 1 horn, it's also possible the Skagosi have these large goat-like creatures suited for their terrain that they have modified to be much more dangerous. And if you look closely, there are hints of this. If you recall, these unicorns are described as enormous goats, great shaggy horned beasts, and the hairy men once proliferated Essos from Andalos all the way to the now vanished Silver Sea, and within that forgotten realm lies the present-day city of Qohor. Qohor has a very peculiar deity that they worship called the Black Goat, and when Arya sees it in the House of Black and White, it's described as a shaggy black goat the size of an aurochs, which sounds a lot like the description of the enormous goat-like creatures that can be found on Skagos. So because Qohor is located in an area where the hairy men once lived, it's possible this black goat deity might actually be a memory of a certain creature that once roamed its lands. Which is interesting because when you look at some of the conceptualizations of what Martin has done with his other religions, using a mount as something that you worship is something that we see with the Dothraki. So it's possible the unicorns of Martin's world are simply large goats with 1 horn instead of 2, a modification to make their mounts more dangerous with impaling force, which would definitely be an interesting take on unicorns. If you enjoyed this video and would like to help the channel, be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment. I'd love to know what topics you'd like me to cover next. Thanks for watching.